Hey, and we're back with another episode of Before You Buy. That show will give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions of the latest games releasing. Today we're talking about Palworld. This is the game the internet has been calling Pokemon with guns. It's also the game the internet has kind of crowned king over the course of last weekend. As this game launched in early access, it broke records. It flew to the top of Steam charts. So I've been playing this for a few days now, both solo and a bit of it cooperatively on PC, where this footage has been captured, and it's also available on Xbox through Game Pass. So now I know the running tagline joke is, like I said, Pokemon with guns, but it's really Pokemon but a survival game like Ark. Pokemon with some elements that some Poke fans have been wanting for a long time. Pokemon with a dash of Breath of the Wild and a few more popular games. Look, people don't like these comparisons. They get very defensive. I've seen the arguments online, but it's often pretty blatant here. Now, what matters is that it clearly derives a lot from things that a lot of other games do well. Sometimes shamelessly. For some, a little too close to comfort. Some character models are alarmingly close to Pokemon they've been spoofing. So there's some potentially questionable stuff here worth acknowledging. Regardless, the game is doing something for some people. Clearly, it's scratching an itch. It's filling a void. Me personally, I don't love a lot of survival games. I'm pretty picky, but I found myself hooked on this one. This game gives you a lot considering its early access. Yeah, it's a little jacked up. Some animations look weird or unfinished. Menus and some whole mechanics could use some complete tweaking. And there's more features I'd love to see. But even with the roughness, the early accessness, it's a really fun time already. There's a lot against it though. It feels a bit cheap, almost like thrown together at times, and it can be devoid of any cohesive feel or personality with the world at times too. Sometimes almost like soulless. But hey, let's just get into it, explain the mechanics, and talk about everything. So if you don't like survival games, it's still very much the thing here. It's not the most intensive one. It's actually pretty casual, but you're chopping down trees, you're cooking and eating to keep your character healthy, and you're building primitive log cabins. But from there, the game very quickly gets you hooked onto its loop, catching creatures with balls you throw at them. You can run up and whack them, weaken them, and then toss a ball at them to hopefully catch and contain them. From there, you can have the little creatures populate the home base you build, get to work, and also accompany you out in the field. You can throw out a ball and have a little rip-off Pikachu come out and follow you around wherever you want, whenever you want. You can ride some of these things. You can use them as mounts. You can fly on them. You can have them fight with you and adventure with you. And that is just a cool thing, to have that fully uncompromised here, just having that creature with you doing whatever is cool. Yeah, they can only do so much, but you can teach them different attacks. You can command them to do those attacks. It's simple, it's accessible, and it's casual, but it gives you that good sense of poke freedom. You're catching these creatures for XP. So catch a bunch of the same one and get a big XP boost. Catch a new one you haven't seen yet, also you get a big XP boost. As you level up, you can dump points into basic stats like health, stamina, attack. Along with that though, you level up and you earn points that you can spend in a technology skill tree. A skill tree that looks almost exactly like Ark Survival Evolves. Here you unlock new things for you to craft and work on and improve everything. So go from cooking food over a campfire to using a real stove. Make more things to store your items, new weapons, fences to defend your homestead, stuff like that. Only in this game, you have Pokemon or whatever as your little workers. All of them have their own characteristics and specializations, and this is what makes the game feel a bit more interesting. Having a bunch of little creatures graze in a pen so you can harvest them for wool, while creatures with hands can plant seeds in your farms to grow food, and then the water creatures can come over and use their water powers to blast water onto the crops, or maybe power a mill to generate more more material for building even better stuff. It's really fun when it all gets going. You need to keep the creatures fed, rested, and happy for all of this to happen. And sometimes your areas will get attacked too, and you'll need to kind of rally the troops. So you can go from a little hut with a farm to a fortified house with sandbags and walls and towers and even turrets and weapons the creatures can use. Along with that, you're adventuring out in the world. Your main task seems to be finding these massive boss towers. These contain like a big boss battle that you need to really gear up and kind of prepare and grind for. They seem challenging, but the other thing is that the game world itself is absolutely huge. Getting to these towers might take a while. The map is massive, and I feel like I've barely even scratched the surface yet. There are cave dungeons with special creatures and loot to find inside, rare creatures hiding around, big boss creatures out in the open, and I've even found some hidden bosses in some pretty weird, unexpected places too. There are even towns with NPCs. This is where the game really feels the early access. It's pretty lifeless, with a couple of vendors and boring NPCs who barely have anything to say, with some weird writing and dialogue. Still, there's potential here for a lot. You can just buy new pals or visit a shop and buy items, but that really seems to be it for now. There are also kind of bandit camps out in the world with enemy bad guys to fight against too. This feels pretty weak, with not a ton of excitement to them and really not a lot of reward. It's nowhere near as good as the boss stuff. It seems like this is still very much an early access work in progress thing, so be warned. It's that depth though that I've really found the most fun. Getting better and better, leveling up and fighting with my creatures, finally unlocking like a grappling hook or a gun, or building a harness to ride my creature. That stuff is really satisfying, and it's pretty briskly paced for a while, with you satisfyingly grinding just enough to progress at a pretty even rate. I don't know how long that'll last, like how far down the tree that will feel. This is only first impressions, of course, but I've actually been impressed here. Once you start really getting a production line going with creatures making you ammo or crafting you new Pokeballs, and everybody has a job and things are moving and everybody's fed, it's fun to see. You can throw your creatures around, you can pet them, you can feed them, and it's cool to see them help you out. Like a little fire-type Vulpix-looking guy will breathe his fire breath into the ironsmith as you forge ingots, or blast your fire as you're cooking. Little things like that made Palworld feel like a creative spin on the many genres it's combining. Now, there's a lot of freedom here, and a lot of complexity. It seems like you can find shinies out in the world, and there's a breeding system too. So the game throws a lot at you. It's a full meal, even if it's a real unfinished one. But I think it comes down to that amount of stuff that people are really enjoying, that kitchen sink approach. It's a casual survival game with monster hunting, collecting elements, and a massive amount of exploration. Now, my only other complaint is that because some of these elements feel so just thrown together, and some gameplay concepts so close to other games, that it really leaves open this glaring hole where the game's, I don't know the word, like its soul should be. It feels pretty lifeless, like devoid of character. Other than some of the creatures being totally awesome, like Depresso, or, besides that, hanging out with them on the farm, like, it doesn't really feel like it has any sense of cohesive lore or story or world building or even visual style to it. It's all just kind of, like I said, tossed together. You can find little collectibles to read out in the world, and they attempt to describe some of the bosses or faction or what's going on. And I've seen some people think this is enough, but to me, everything here feels like an afterthought. It just kind of feels like this random game. You're like a little Fortnite guy with a furry outfit fighting against weird Pokemon and bad guys that sometimes look like the Hellghast from Killzone. I don't know. One boss encounter feels completely unlike anything else in the entire game. It's bizarre sometimes. It's like a bunch of puzzle pieces next to each other, just not actually connecting. Nothing is really very interesting here because there just isn't anything yet. This is definitely like a matter of preference. You might not care about that. You just want to have fun in this world. I can only speak to how I feel. So I hope Palworld can take the millions of dollars it's clearly making already and build out a more interesting world and characters and everything that you can really fall in love with, because that will be the layup in my opinion. Maybe carve out even better takes and just newer stuff that isn't just evaluating on other games. That's just me. Now, the developers do claim that this game is 60% done and PvP and new content is in the works, and I'm curious to see where that goes. So again, I've had some harsh words for it, but like I said at the start, I was hooked. I've been having fun. It's accessible, it's easy to get into with some nice, satisfying progression and a bunch of early access mess. If you're the type of player who can tolerate that, buying into something unfinished and even a bit buggy, and you like a dash of survival game stuff in their games, then yeah, maybe keep an eye on it. And while I did play a lot of it solo, I did have a surprisingly good time. I did have even more fun when I brought a friend in. We hopped in a little server and just started doing our thing, battling and catching and doing everything. I would say it's fine on your own, but the experience definitely improves with others. All this being said and done, like with games like this, we tend to revisit them in a year or so. We've done it with No Man's Sky. We've done it with a lot of games that release either early access or in a rough state. So I'm looking forward to talking about Palworld in a year, see where it is, and see if Nintendo sued them into the dirt. We'll see where this goes, but of course this is a before you buy. You know how this works by now. We give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion. And now I want to hear yours down in the comments. What do you think about Palworld? It seems like everybody's made their mind up already on this thing. It's either something you're into or you're not. Do you feel like the stuff is just blatantly ripping off unfairly? Are you not really fazed by that? What do you think the future of this game is? Are you surprised by its success? Are you a Pokemon fan that felt like you've been abused for years and now you're coming to this? I'd love to hear your perspective down in the comments. Let us know anything you think about Palworld, and if this video helped you out, seeing some gameplay, getting some opinions, clicking the like button does help us out. Thank you. But if you're new, consider subscribing because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.